Commissioner O'Donnell, can you hear me okay? This is Patricia.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You hear me? You hear me fine?
I can, thanks.
Thank you.
Patricia, can you hear me?
Good morning, Commissioner Bukacek. I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Vice President Fielder, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. President. Good morning.
Commissioner Bukacek?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. Time is now 9:31 a.m. Today's date is Tuesday, November 26, 2024. This is the time and place for our regularly scheduled business meeting. We are appearing from the Bollinger Room at the Montana Public Service Commission. I will call this meeting to order. Would my colleagues join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, colleagues. I would note for the record that I am present in the Bollinger Room. Commissioner Bukacek, Vice President Fielder, and Commissioner O'Donnell are appearing remotely. Commissioner Pinocci is in the house here somewhere, so I expect him to be joining us. But for now, we do have quorum. All right. Montana Public Service Commission welcomes public comment on any matter that is on today's agenda or on any matter that is within the jurisdiction of the Montana Public Service Commission. As per the usual, do we have any public commenters in the room? Any public commenters in the room? Seeing none. Public commenters online. I understand that we do have public commenters who have signed up to participate remotely. The way that we handle this at the commission is that we will read the names and call on persons in the order that they indicated to us that they would like to make public comment. So, Mr. Harry Engelhart, are you on? Mr. Engelhart? Not seeing him. We'll circle back. All right. Online commenter number 2, Miss Rhea Worley. Not seeing Miss Worley either. All right, let's move to online commenter number 3. This is Mary Harlow. Mary, are you on?
Yes, I am. Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Mary Harlow, Maryharlow. I'm a resident of 3 Readers Village Drive here in Helena.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, yesterday morning, I had the privilege of volunteering to help package food for the 900 and more residents of Helena that need help with their food for the next week and Thanksgiving. I saw many senior citizens and young families in that line. This is happening all over Montana, just not here in Helena. The cost for drinking water in Helena is going up 3.5% and wastewater up 4.0%. Food costs continue to rise. Property taxes are increasing with the increase in property values. Northwest Energy is now requesting a 1.9% interim increase in residential electric bills, which amounts to $2.09 more per month. In April of 2025, a permanent 8.28% increase of $9.11 per month is being asked for. These increases would mean almost 40% more in electric bills alone. Northwest Energy is a monopoly. Why do we need to have a 10.6% increase in their equity? Northwest Energy has made some bad investments. The company is doing well. Stock prices are going up. Executive compensation is great. Montanans who can at least afford these increases, the old and young families are hurting. How many will become homeless or because they can't meet the cost of home ownership or the cost of heating their homes? As taxpayers, we are asking the PSC to not give Northwest Energy these increases in electric and gas prices. It's time for Northwest Energy to bear the cost of their poor investments, not us native Montanans. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harlow. We appreciate your time this morning. Online commenter number 4, Ms. Beth Kading.
Yes, I'm here.
Good
Can you hear
morning.
me?
Yes, we can. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Beth Kading. The last name is spelled K-A-E, D as in David, I-N-G. And I live in Bozeman, and I am a Northwestern Energy customer. And as such, I rely upon the Public Service Commission to ensure that this energy supply utility, which is a monopoly, provides me and others in the region with reliable services that are cost-effective, affordable, and appropriate. In the past, I have submitted numerous comments to the PSC on various Northwestern Energy docket items. In all my comments, I have expressed the concern, as I do again today, that Northwestern Energy is more focused on corporate profits than on providing reliable, affordable, sustainable, and cost-effective energy to its customers. The rates Montanans pay for energy are the highest in our region, and this is because the energy utilities portfolio is focused on fossil fuel power generation sources that it owns. While there are other projects within Northwestern Energy's portfolio, this corporation has focused on fossil fuel sources because of the sweetheart deal it was given many years ago, allowing it a return of equity, meaning that ratepayers can be charged as much as 11% for power plants that Northwestern builds and or owns. Electricity generated from these owned assets, including the outdated Colstrip power plant and the new methane gas plant in Laurel, as well as other proposals, are the corporation's main focus for energy, while at the same time, the monopoly opposes wind and solar projects, including residential solar that it does not own. Last year, this body granted Northwestern Energy a 28% rate increase on electricity that Northwestern provides to its customers. Now, Northwestern is back before you with an additional electric rate proposals, which, when combined with that 28% increase, would mean Montanans' electric rates would increase by almost 40%. Added to this, the increase in natural gas rates approved and proposed would raise those rates by 17%. These rate increases are going to mean significant hardship for many, maybe even most Montanans. Ratepayers are also being saddled with Northwestern Energy's corporate profit-making decisions for many years into the future. The many costs of Colstrip, built in the 70s, from air pollution to leaking coal ash ponds, polluting the aquifer, to constant maintenance issues, should not be placed on the back of Montana ratepayers. The new Laurel gas plant could more likely be designated a major source of hazardous air pollutions, as this plant will emit 49.4 tons of formaldehyde each year, as well as being a periodic source of methane emission spikes. Northwestern Energy, as a regulated monopoly, is supposed to manage on a least cost portfolio basis for ratepayers because its customers are captive. The PSC was created to protect us, the captive ratepayers, from overzealous corporate managers who represent stockholders on their never-ending quest for profits and self-serving decisions. Please, Public Service Commission, do your job and protect Montanans. We're captive from the excessive and unnecessary costs, as well as preventing inappropriate energy source decisions. Please force Northwestern Energy to move quickly into the future that renewable energy the rest of the nation is moving toward. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Kading. All right, commenter number 5, Mr. Larry Bean. Mr. Bean?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Bean.
Oh, thank you so much.
Good
I
morning.
was having trouble getting on. Yeah, thank you. My name is Larry Bean, 2905 Harrow Drive, Billings, Montana. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and for serving in a position, all of you, I know is much, much harder than most of us can imagine. I personally am retired on an annuity, and yes, I do get a cost of living allowance, but that percentage increase to my income is only a fraction of the increases I see in the rising costs of insurance, property taxes, transportation, and food. Year after year, these increases keep coming and my budget keeps falling a little bit behind. But let me share another observation with you, if I may. The other day, I was at Albertsons on their senior discount day, one of the few ways we can save a little money. And in front of me in the checkout stand was a young mother with her 2 children. And I noticed she was paying in cash from an envelope in her purse. And it sort of made me smile because it reminded me when my wife and I were that age, we used to use that same method of micromanaging our budget. And it's interesting that I see that more and more. But what really got my attention was when the bill was totaled, she didn't have enough cash and she had to put a few things back. Well, that little scene got me to thinking about our last election. And one of the surprises was how many young people voted with the majority. An explanation I heard was that for those in this young mother's shoes, the rhetoric that wages are up and inflation is down just really wasn't a reality for a lot of young people. They are hoping, and this is why they cast their votes the way they did, that their elected leadership would start looking for some fixes. So now, here we are with Christmas just around the corner, contemplating one of several rate increases. This young mother will be taking a sharp pencil to the back of that envelope, trying to figure out how many more times they're going to be eating macaroni and cheese this month to come up with an extra $2 here and $10 there to meet their monthly bills. And wondering, by the way, why are we paying twice as much as our neighbors who aren't under the thumb of this monopoly corporation? It seems like we're at a significant milestone at this moment. Is Northwest Energy going to get a rate increase for Christmas wrapped up with a bow while the rest of us get a lump of coal? Or will our PSC leadership question the need for this increase, especially in the light of record stock prices and executive compensation, and instead give some relief to this constant assault of rising prices? I am respectfully asking that you say no to this interim rate increase. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments this morning, Mr. Bean. Online commenter number 6, Ms. Joan Kresich.
Thank you, commissioners. My name is Joan Kresich, K-R-E-S-I-C-H, from Livingston. It's really time for Northwestern Energy to stop asking us to pay for their uninspired planning. As the source of all Northwestern Energy's funds, we ratepayers protest this endless parade of rate hikes while shareholders benefit from really nice fat profits. This picture looks more and more like greed. Meanwhile, stories abound of captive customers finding higher bills a real hardship. Of course, That's very difficult for Northwestern Energy executives to understand, but hefty 6- and 7-figure salaries have a way of blinding those people to the day-to-day realities of folks in a much more harsh targeting world, as our previous commenter mentioned. By the way, I am on a fixed income myself, and of course, it's shrinking. Please deny this interim rate hike, and please require Northwestern Energy to prove that these rate hikes are anything more than a very nice gift to themselves and their shareholders. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for your time this morning. Let's move to online commenter number 7, Ms. Carol Mick. Ms. Carol Mick, I'm not seeing that she's listed, so we'll move forward. Comment identifier number 8, Mr. Zachary Williams. I'm not seeing Mr. Williams is on. Online commenter number 9, Mr. Gordon Levin. Not seeing that Mr. Levin's on. All right. Commenter number 10. Ms. Pamela Poon.
Hello, and thank you very much for inviting citizens to speak today. My name is Pamela, Pamela. The last name is Poon, Poon, and I'm from Bozeman, Montana. I am partially retired as an attorney here in Bozeman, but all along a large part of my work has dealt with what I call access to justice. That means that I devote considerable time, and now the majority of my time, working with families in family law cases who do not have access to attorneys. As you might imagine, these are folks who are low income and who are, like many of your prior speakers alluded to, they have to count absolute any penny, or they just go without. These are my clients who work multiple jobs, and this is not my mere dreams here. I look at their bills and I make budgets for them so they can figure out how to divide debts and assets. Primarily in divorce, we also talk about income and debts for the purpose of looking at who takes the debts when they are dividing a marriage, and also looking at child support, which actually doesn't take into those things into account. Most of my clients work multiple jobs. They don't have any benefits that are provided by their jobs. Yes, they do take part in public benefits to the extent possible, but as you might imagine, this doesn't make for an easy or nice life. They often are forced to do things like put all the kids together at a friend's house, so one person is watching 9 kids while people take shifts working. And by the way, the homes we are talking about are not energy efficient homes. They are often mobile homes, or they're uninsulated homes, and they simply have to make do. So this interim rate hike that is being proposed by Northwestern Energy will hurt very, very vulnerable people, and it will make a difference in how they deal with everything. Part of my work actually also deals with the child welfare system, and I work with the families whose children are being removed by the county. And I sit and I try to work together with everyone to get a common consensus about everyone's concerns before they go before the judge. Well, one of the things we look at very much in depth is how are the children being treated? And often the county sees that the families are in substandard homes, and those homes make it that the children have to wear down jackets inside. You know, they heat with the oven, which we all know is not a way to heat a home. So these are people who don't have much of a voice. I don't think many of them made time to vote. So maybe the Public Service Commission can't hear those voices. And so I'm here to be a loudspeaker for them to say they are really suffering. I hope none of you have ever had to count the pennies and have cooked flour for dinner, which is what they sometimes have. And again, sometimes they're quote, borrowing power to use to do that on their poorly functioning cooking implements, please think about them when you are making the decision whether or not to grant this rate hike. These are the most vulnerable people that we have, and they are citizens. Ultimately, of course, they do vote, and we hope that they are able ultimately to have things like benefits, and the children can grow up in the schools that they need and have healthcare, all of that. But having electricity that they can rely on at a price they can afford, even with the Northwestern, LEAP program and all, it's extremely hard for them, and they are suffering because of that, and they simply cannot afford this rate hike. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for your time, Ms. Poon. We appreciate it. All right, I'll circle back to those who indicated that they would like to make public comment this morning. Is Mr. Harry Engelhardt on? Ms. Rhea Worley? Ms. Carol Mick? Mr. Zachary Williams? Mr. Gordon Levin? All right. Well, thank you for all of those who took the time to make public comment this morning. We appreciate your participation. All right. There are no changes to the agenda this morning, so we will move into our action item. Action item number 1 is approval of the commission minutes for the week of November 18, 2024. Vice President Fielder.
Yes, Mr. President, I move approval of the commission minutes for the week of November 18th.
All right, I will second. So we have motion and second. Discussion, revisions, changes to the draft minutes the week of November 18, 2024. Seeing none, all those in favor of Vice President Fielder's motion to approve the draft commission minutes of the week of November 18, 2024 as the final minutes for that week, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying no. Seeing no opposition, motion carries 4-0. Please let the minutes reflect that Commissioner Pinocci is not here. All right, minutes are adopted. Let's move to work session item number 1. This is docket 2024.05.053 Northwestern Energy. We are here to act on Northwestern Energy's application to increase electric and natural gas service rates on an interim basis. We're here more specifically to consider issuing an interim rate adjustment order. Well, good morning.
Good morning, President Brown and commissioners. My name is Amanda Webster. I'm a staff attorney at the commission. To start, I'm going to provide a brief procedural summary. As you know, Northwestern's request for interim electric and natural gas rate adjustments was filed in conjunction with its currently pending general rate case application. During the period for intervention in this case, multiple organizations moved to intervene without objection or are therefore parties to this proceeding. The only intervening party that filed an objection to Northwestern's interim request was the Montana Environmental Information Center, which we'll refer to as MEIC. MEIC primarily objected to Northwestern's request for an electric bridge rate, but its arguments may reasonably be extended to the approval of any costs associated with the Yellowstone County Generating Station, or YCGS. No other intervening party, including the Consumer Council, filed a response to Northwestern's interim request. Thereafter, Northwestern filed a reply brief standing by its interim request. Currently, discovery to Northwestern by the parties is currently underway, and staff anticipates there will be considerable investigation into Northwestern's costs while this proceeding is pending. Next, I'll provide a brief overview of the legal standards the Commission considers for interim rate cases during a general rate case. First, the Commission has broad discretion to determine and approve interim rate adjustments pending a hearing or final decision on a rate application. Rates charged by public utilities must be just and reasonable, and determining whether a rate is just and reasonable involves balancing utility and consumer interests. Commission rules provide that consideration of an application to increase rates on an interim basis in a general rate case will be guided by generally established principles of utility rate regulation. Under generally established principles, utilities must be given the opportunity to earn a fair rate of return, or ROR, on their investments, including equipment used to provide service to the public. The Commission considers, among other things, whether a utility's ROR is sufficient to pay its debt costs and earn a fair return on equity, or ROE, for investors. Regarding a fair ROE, there are 3 generally established standards that come from the often cited Hope and Bluefield Supreme Court cases. The ROE should be commensurate with other businesses of similar risk. The ROE should be sufficient to maintain the utility's financial integrity, and the ROE should enable the utility to attract investors and capital on reasonable terms. Notably, the Commission's rules provide that the ROE for an interim rate case and a general rate case shall be the ROE that was approved in the utility's last general rate case. Thus, for an interim rate adjustment in a general rate case, the utility should be given a fair opportunity to earn the ROE approved in its last general rate review. Finally, the Commission may also modify interim rate adjustments and make other adjustments to an interim rate request if it deems appropriate. And if final rates are different than what is granted on an interim basis, the Commission may order the difference be refunded or surcharged with interest. I'll next pass the mic to my regulatory counterpart to explain staff's recommendation.
Good morning, President Brown and Commissioners. This is Brooke Umstead, Rate Analyst in the Regulatory Division. To recap Northwestern's full application, Northwestern proposes to raise its electric base revenue requirement by $156,503,585, decrease its supply costs by $94,522,047, and increase its property tax base by $7,409,982. For natural gas service in its full application, Northwestern proposes to raise its natural gas base revenue requirement by $28,633,763 and increase its property tax base by $241,654. In comparison, in its interim application, which is before you today, Northwestern proposes to raise its electric base revenue requirement by approximately $42.4 million, which is approximately 27% of its total request, decrease its supply cost by approximately $94.5 million, which is the same as the full application, and increase property taxes by approximately $7.4 million, which is also the same as the full application. The interim differs, however, in that Northwestern also requests approval of a $58.4 million bridge rate that it proposes to recover in the interim due to YCGS's calculated energy and capacity benefits. Moving on to natural gas service, Northwestern proposes to raise its natural gas base revenue requirement by approximately $17.4 million, or 60% of its overall request, and then increase property taxes by the same, approximately $241,000. In the interim, Northwestern proposes to adjust its rates on a uniform percentage basis, which preserves the allocations that were approved in the last rate case. Staff's recommendation, as seen in the memo before you, is broken into 4 parts: base revenue requirements, property taxes, the PCAM base, and the bridge rate. Please also see Appendix A to the staff memo for a summary of Northwestern's interim request and staff's recommendation. I will walk through each of the 4 parts separately, and I would be happy to take questions at the end. As a reminder, which is seen in the memo, this is a holistic analysis. Staff took a systematic approach to evaluating each of the 4 components, both separately and as a whole. Staff recommends approving the 4 parts as recommended in their entirety. To start with, first up is revenue requirements. Both Northwestern's electric and natural gas revenue requirement requests are driven by plant investments. As Amanda mentioned, consideration of revenue requirement increases in the interim are guided by the Hope and Bluefield cases. Staff compared Northwestern's earned ROE to its authorized to determine whether interim relief is necessary to address regulatory lag and maintain the utility's financial health during the pendency of this rate case. An additional metric staff looked into is the utility's funds from operations to debt ratio, which is used by credit rating agencies to evaluate financial strength. Staff conducted multiple rounds of discovery to collect the most up-to-date data, which is confidential, and the basis for staff's recommendation. Overall, for the electric utility, staff recommends denying Northwestern's proposed revenue increase of approximately $42 million due to current financial health. Staff recognizes, however, that on October 25th, YCGS largely came online and is currently serving customers. With YCGS coming online, Northwestern moved approximately $275 million from construction work in progress to plant in service. This creates additional pressure on Northwestern's financial metrics. With this in mind, staff recommend approving YCGS's operating and maintenance expenses, calculated depreciation expense, and cost of debt in the electric base revenue requirement. This is a revenue increase of $18,419,700. For the natural gas utility, staff recommends approving the full $17.4 million revenue request. This is based on Northwestern's natural gas utility consistently under-earning, relieving expense pressure on net operating income, and to address Northwestern's concerns regarding the qualitative metrics assessed by credit rating agencies. And moving on to the next part, which is property taxes. Per statute, Northwestern is allowed to pass through property tax expense to its customers. This is done through the property tax base, which is set in rate cases, and subsequent annual filings to true up under or over collections. As a reminder, Northwestern does not earn a return on its property tax expense. It is simply a pass-through cost to customers. Staff recommend approving Northwestern's property tax request, which is approximately $241,000 for the natural gas utility and approximately $7.4 million for the electric utility. I would note that the electric increase includes property taxes associated with YCGS. As I previously mentioned, YCGS is largely online, currently serving customers, and Northwestern has already been paying property taxes associated with YCGS since the inception of the project. And moving on to Northwestern's power costs and credits adjustment mechanism. We abbreviate this by saying PCAM, and to put it into simpler terms, this is Northwestern's electric tracker. The PCAM base rate is set in rate cases with subsequent annual and quarterly filings to true up any under or over collections. Northwestern proposes a significant decrease to the PCAM base of approximately $94.5 million. This decrease is due to multiple things. So to go through them one by one. First, YCGS is coming online, which leads to additional market sales and fewer market purchases. Two, natural gas forward prices have decreased significantly since the last approved PCAM base. This reduces variable costs at Dave Gates and Basin Creek. Three, its estimated capacity purchases have decreased. And four, Northwestern updated its power sim modeling, which forecasts the PCAM base to better reflect its participation in the Western energy imbalance market. Now, with this proposed decrease, Northwestern does propose to recover YCGS variable costs in the PCAM. As I previously mentioned, YCGS is online. However, 2 of the 18 engines will not be online until 2025, which is outside the known and measurable period. This impacts the forecasted PCAM base in the interim. Northwestern neglected to update its request, but staff calculated this impact to be a decrease to the PCAM base of approximately $88 million instead of the former $94.5 million decrease. With that, staff recommends updating the PCAM base to $125,504,083. And for the final part of staff's recommendation, we move on to the bridge rate request. Northwestern proposes a bridge rate of approximately $58 million to recover the forecasted benefit or value of YCGS in the PCAM. Staff recommends denying the proposed bridge rate in its entirety for the following reasons. 1, the bridge rate is more than the proposed cost of service for YCGS by approximately $15.7 million, resulting in a significant overcharge to customers. And to say that differently, the proposed bridge rate does not comply with generally established principles of utility rate regulation. 2, Northwestern does not propose to true up the bridge rate, which is common practice of tracking mechanisms. 3, the calculated benefit is no longer accurate given 2 engines are not currently online. Northwestern failed to update its request. And 4, staff do not agree with Northwestern's cited commission comments and orders as precedent for approval of this request. With staff's prior recommendations, Northwestern will already be recovering operating and maintenance expenses, depreciation expense, cost of debt, property taxes, fuel, transportation, and reagent costs associated with YCGS and the other recommendations. With that, staff recommends denying the bridge rate proposal. And finally, bill impacts. Approving staff's electric recommendations would result in a $7.96 or a 7.24% decrease to the typical residential customer using 750 kilowatt hours per month. Approving staff's natural gas recommendations would result in a $4.38 or 8.44% increase to the typical residential customer using 65 therms per month. Amanda, Grant, Tim, and I are happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Umstead. Mr. Fink, anything to add at this point? Mr. Nerstead, anything to add? He waves off. All right, colleagues, I will move to approve the draft interim order as the final order of the commission on this interim matter and authorize staff to issue the draft interim order with any appropriate clerical edits. Is there a second?
I'll second your motion, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Vice President Fielder. We have motion and second. Discussion or questions?
Yes.
Vice President Fielder.
Just a couple comments, Mr. President, on this. As more energy is demanded by Montana consumers, more energy generation is needed. And I'm pleased to see Northwestern Energy developing new energy generation to meet those very real and serious demands, particularly ensuring that we will have enough energy to meet those demands during extreme cold weather events in the wintertime, which for the past several years we have been, as a state, tediously close to the brink in being able to keep energy flowing to Montana homes and businesses during those critical times. I do agree with Montana Environmental Information Center regarding denying the $58.5 million bridge rate. But I do admonish MEIC to be more truthful and accurate in the facts that they are dispersing to the public, because, in fact, they are doing a great disservice with misinformation more often than not, in my observations. Regarding those who urge the commission to kill any type of energy related to natural gas or coal, I also admonish these members of the public to consider the greenhouse gas emissions being emitted by environmentalist and Democrat policies regarding management of our federal lands, by locking it up and letting it burn instead of allowing vegetation management and fuel reductions through traditional workable methods that are beneficial to Americans, and that is the use of timber harvest and grazing on public lands. I call to attention the current bill introduced by U.S. Senator Ron Wyden, Senate Bill 4424, that is before the Senate now, and that is a bill to encourage and expand the use of fire on federal lands with an emphasis on burning the national forest in western states.
Vice President Fielder, this is President Brown. I'm going to ask you to try to keep your comments focused on the matter before us. Thank you.
Thank you, President Brown. I think it's relevant because a lot of the arguments and opposition and interveners have come from a strong opposition to greenhouse gas emissions. And I would like to call their attention to things that they can do that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions without jeopardizing Montana homes and businesses by putting them at risk of blackout. I will move on, though, Mr. President.
Thank you. You may Do you have any questions for staff?
I don't have questions for staff. I think that what I'm seeing here is that Northwestern Energy's original interim rate would have been a 1.27% increase in electric. The draft order we have before us today, which I will be supporting, is a 7.24% decrease in electricity rates. It's about $8 a month, and a decrease on electricity bills. It is a slight increase in natural gas bills. However, I think that the staff has come up with a very workable proposal here, and I am not pleased to see any increase at all. But the fact that we were able to achieve about an 8% decrease in electricity rates going into winter, I think is good news. And I appreciate the work on this order and will be supporting it.
All right. Thank you, Vice President Fielder. Additional comments or questions?
I have my hand raised.
Okay. Yeah, it's not showing up. I apologize. Commissioner Bukacek?
Thank you, Mr. President. But before I ask my question to staff, I wanted to make a few comments relative to my question. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
So Montana mainstream newspapers, they consistently interpret the Public Service Commission's role in rate cases. And these newspapers have presumably contributed to consumer misunderstanding that we heard today and that we read about when we read our emails. And that is despite our staff's repeated, very clear explanations. So for brief clarification of what staff has already said in long form, in other places and here, Montana Consumer Council is not the PSC, is the constitutionally appointed advocate for consumers. We at the PSC advocate for and protect consumers through our attempts to keep utility rates reasonable and just by balancing ratepayers' needs with the needs of monopoly utilities that provide services essential for life. And if we do our commission job properly, we don't base our decisions on emotion or pressure felt by misinterpretation in Montana newspapers. Our decisions are based on formulas, range of reasonableness, precedent, Supreme Court rulings, administrative rules, and so on, as staff repeatedly points out. I'm almost done. So those items, including the formulas we use, are based on the recognition that utilities must be given the opportunity to earn a fair rate of return on their investments. And as you staff have lined out in your draft, ROE must be sufficient to maintain the utility's financial integrity and enable the utility to attract investors and capital. Within the various constraints, we regulate the utility's ability to function effectively so they could provide services to the public, so they could provide essential services like keeping the lights and heat on. So now for my question, and I think this would be for Brooke, but whoever wants to answer this, based on your recommendations with the rates going down for electricity more than they're going up for gas, can you explain how, with the appearance, it's a superficial appearance, but with the appearance of Northwestern Energy taking a significant financial hit in paragraph 60, how staff's recommendation brings balance to Northwestern Energy and the ratepayers?
President Brown, Commissioner Bukacek, thank you for that question. I think to explain this, I'll explain the two types of rates being proposed. We have base rates that are set using revenue requirements, and then we also have tracking mechanisms, which is the property tax tracker and the PCAM. The PCAM is the cause of the substantial decrease that you're seeing to electric customers. And in the interim, we are evaluating what additional revenue does Northwestern need to maintain financial health and integrity during the pendency of the rate case. When staff makes a proposed increase to revenues, which is supportive to financial health, that is in the form of base rates and the base revenue requirement. An increase to base rates will increase net income. That is seen with staff's recommendation of increasing electric base rates by approximately $18.4 million. Tracking mechanisms, however, have a net zero impact on net income and financial health because they are pass-through costs that are trued up. Simply put, Northwestern's expenses are decreasing, though revenues should also decrease, which is a net zero impact to net income. One component of the PCAM that could impact the health of the utility is the 90-10 sharing mechanism. Northwestern overcollects, which it would if base rates remained at the $208 million, Northwestern shareholders would get to keep 10% of the overcollections. It goes the opposite way as well. If Northwestern undercollects, shareholders do not get to recoup 10% of the undercollections. And staff's recommendation to increase base rates, that $18.4 million, is far more supportive to Northwestern's financial health than Northwestern keeping 10% of the possible overcollections by keeping the base at the $200. And it is also important to note that tracking mechanisms give price signals to customers. And when the price of natural gas or electricity increases, the customer bill will also increase. So it is critical to update the PCAM base to prevent over and under collections and give correct price signals to customers. Overall, although it is a decrease to customers' rates, staff's recommendation is constructive to Northwestern's financial.
Follow up?
Excellent explanation. And the draft and the other information that we've been given by staff is as usual the highest quality, and I'm grateful for the one-on-one time the staff has given me, and also this explanation that Ms. Umstead just gave. I will be voting yay for this staff recommendation, with the reservation of concern of potential lack of cash flow for the utility that provides services needed for people to live. Thank you, Ms. Umstead. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Bukacek. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Thank you, Mr. President. No comments.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. Additional comments or questions? All right, seeing none, I'll ask some questions. Ms. Umstead, I will second the remarks of Commissioner Bukacek, not only for your work, but also for the work of each of you on this panel this morning. This was excellent work on your behalf. The memo was well written. The draft order is well written and fully explains, I think, what action we're being asked to take today. So I'd just like to start with following up on Commissioner Bukacek's final comment about cash flow for the regulated utility in this case. So, Ms. Umstead, you would certainly agree with me that this proceeding is not concluding with the decision by the commission today, correct?
Correct.
We will be having a hearing in this matter at some point in 2025, correct?
Correct.
And in that hearing, we will be making a final determination on the merits of Northwest Energy's application. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And during the months-long proceeding ahead of us, we will certainly have opportunity to interact with not only interveners in this matter, but also with the utility to ask them about their financial status, correct?
Yes.
So if there is some concern by a commissioner about the cash flow of this utility, and there is an identified problem, there will be opportunity to address that at a future proceeding, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Even so, I believe that staff has clearly elucidated as part of its recommendation to the commission in this matter that both as to the electric side of this utility and to the natural gas side of this utility, that the recommended, well, the draft order and the rates contained therein will ensure the utility is financially solvent, correct?
Yes, staff believes the recommendation as proposed is a constructive outcome and addresses all of Northwestern's concerns.
So to that end, colleagues, I believe that if we issue the draft order is the final order today, we will have satisfied our obligation to ensure that the utility remains financially healthy. Let's talk a little bit about Ms. Umstead, let's talk a little bit about the PCAM base. Staff has recommended a reduction of some 88 million to the PCAM, correct?
That is correct.
That is a substantial amount of money, is it not, Ms. Umstead?
Correct.
The utility in this matter had requested on its own accord a reduction of 94 million, correct?
That is correct.
However, through staff review, we have adjusted that reduction down, if you can follow that line of reasoning, by some 6 million, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, Ms. Umstead, is utility rate making a dynamic exercise or is it static?
Dynamic.
And it is dynamic, particularly as it relates to supply purchases, because market conditions change over time, does it not?
Yes, that is correct.
So if we have a scenario, which we do in front of us, where this commission approved a rate increase 2 years ago for this utility, and that has caused some consternation and angst. Due to changing market conditions, Commission is taking action now based on what is happening in terms of the market and supply purchases to reduce utility bills, correct? So what I'm getting at is what happened at a point in time when we issued an order 2 years ago for this utility has changed due to market conditions, correct?
Yes, if we're speaking in relation to the PCAM base, it is a change in market conditions and also Northwestern's investments.
Correct. So as we are sitting here in 2024, what those market conditions are telling us is that on the consumer side, or protection of the consumers, which is also part of our mission, we are, in theory, protecting the consumers because we have realized that rates can go down for consumers based on what has happened in the markets, correct? At least as to the electricity side in this matter.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is that if we issue this interim order, we are not only carrying out our duty to make sure that this utility remains financially healthy and solvent, but also we are protecting the consumer by reducing rates, at least for the interim period, by almost $8, correct?
Yes.
All right, so that's the electric utility side. So the natural gas utility side, we are receiving a recommendation from the staff for $4.38 increase, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Let's walk through this a little bit just so the public understands. You elucidated this and you highlighted it during your opening remarks, but I just want the public to understand this. So for both the gas side and the electric side, we are improving an increase for property tax payments, correct?
Correct.
Does the Commission, Ms. Umstead, have discretion under Montana statute to deny approval of rates for that category of expenditure?
No, the commission is required to let Northwestern pass through those costs.
Very good. So we are, however, for the natural gas utility, the interim application asks for a base revenue requirement of 17.4 million roughly, correct?
That is correct.
And we are granting the full amount as part of this interim, correct?
Correct.
Which makes up $3.81 of the $4.38 increase, correct?
Correct.
Can you explain to the public why staff feels that it's appropriate to grant the full amount of the base revenue requirement request?
Yes, I would first say that the base revenue requirement request is driven by plant investments. And although we are not assessing the prudency of those plant investments in the interim, we are determining what are the revenues needed to maintain financial health in the interim during the rate case. And this was a holistic analysis taking into account the electric utility and the gas utility. And the natural gas utility has consistently under-earned, which is seen in the ROE table in the memo. And it also takes into account Northwestern's concerns regarding the credit ratings and the qualitative metrics that the credit rating agencies assess. And we believe this is a constructive outcome and necessary to maintain the financial integrity of the utility in the interim.
And then so back to the mission of the commission, which is to ensure that the utility remains healthy. It is staff's recommendation that we should approve the full base revenue requirement for that purpose, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, you mentioned as part of your answer there, plant investments. Do you recall that? We are, of course, talking about the YCGS facility located in Laurel, correct?
For the electric utility, yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. So one of the comments that Vice President Fielder made or was alluding to was the prudency of the Laurel plant. Are we in any way, by issuing this interim order, making a determination as a final matter as to the prudency of that investment by the utility at hand?
No.
Why is that?
President Brown, to follow up regarding the legal standard, in all rate cases, the commission reviews a utility's costs to determine whether they are reasonably and prudently incurred. And this is a decision the commission makes on a final basis after a full contested case proceeding. After discovery's finished, after a hearing where the parties have an opportunity to bring their witnesses in. So this is a decision that is still ongoing. The record is still developing, and nothing in Montana law requires the commission to make a determination on prudency in order to approve interim recovery.
Thank you for that clarification. So ultimately, Ms. Webster or Ms. Umstead, as I led off this line of questioning, there are still proceedings left in this matter that will allow interested parties, including the Montana Consumer Council, to weigh in not only on the merits, I guess, if you will, of the amount requested by Northwestern Energy as part of its filing, but also the prudency of its investments, correct?
Correct.
And that will be decided as a final matter when we issue a final order in this matter, correct?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Umstead, you also mentioned, I think, as part of your opening and perhaps as part of the responses to the other two commissioners, that Northwest Energy has averred in its application that it has made investments in its own infrastructure, correct?
Correct.
That includes transmission, correct?
Yes.
And so as we discussed, rate making and business decision making is a dynamic exercise, correct? Responding to market conditions.
Correct.
And I believe, Ms. Umstead, that we have seen in Montana applications certainly come before this commission, and on the ground, the trend towards use of more solar and wind facilities to generate power in Montana, have we not?
We have seen applications come before the commission.
And so it is easy to surmise that perhaps the investments in this transmission being made by this utility are being made in order to connect those new facilities to existing transmission lines, perhaps?
I wouldn't speak to that. I think that's outside the scope of the interim.
Perhaps, but I'm not asking for purposes of making a final decision on this interim rate. Has Northwestern Energy made investments into its transmission systems
Correct.
to build it out?
Yes.
All right. Okay, and then a final question for you is that this is an interim rate order that we are considering today, correct?
Yes.
All right, so I believe under Montana law that this commission follows that if we determine as a commission, although I won't be on it next year, that something in the current order is incorrect or needs to be changed, the commission has the ability to adjust that such that if we allow the utility to over-collect in some way or under-collect, that can be adjusted as a final matter, correct?
President Brown, that is correct.
All right, colleagues, well, I'll speak to my own motion. As I think I clarified through my line of questioning, by issuing this interim order, we will be effectively carrying out what we are required to do under Montana law, which is to make sure that the utility is financially sound and healthy, while at the same time, as indicated by the rate decrease for customers, at least on the electric utility side, making sure that customers are able to receive services at a reasonable rate. So I will be supporting my own motion. Additional discussion or questions? Seeing none, all is in favor of my motion to issue the draft order on draft interim order as the final order of the commission on the interim rate request, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying no. Seeing no opposition, motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Finocchi being absent. All right. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, staff. Excellent job. All right. For those that pay attention to these proceedings and what the commission does, the commission will be closed on Thanksgiving Day so that we can enjoy time with our families. And for those in attendance and listening online, we hope you enjoy the holidays with your family as well. We will not be having a commission business meeting next Tuesday, December 3rd. Our next commission business meeting will be at the regular time, 9:30 a.m. on December 10th, 2024. Seeing no further business to come before us, I will adjourn today's meeting at the time of 10:33 a.m.
Thank you.